There is power in lists that you actually use. Lists that you go back to when you're making decisions, lists that you revisit when you are doing your routines, go-to lists that you bring out whenever you need to get something specific done. Those are the lists that change your life. In this video, I am going to talk about some lists that you can create for yourself to change your life. Lists that I have, lists that I use, lists that make a big difference for me. Starting with a list of resistance strategies. If you have a list of resistance strategies that you actually use, getting through your days is going to be so much easier and more flowy. So my sister has ADHD, and the other day we were talking about how she knows the techniques that she needs to use to get herself to do things, to take action when her brain is telling her to not take any action. She's read about the strategies, she's watched my videos that are full of them, and she's used them. She knows that they work for her and they help her. But her biggest problem is actually remembering to use them when the time comes. When she's in slug mode, when she doesn't want to get up, her mind doesn't go towards strategies to use, it goes towards what to ruminate on. It goes towards what it can do to numb her mind. Strategies are wonderful, but they are actually useless until they get used and until they become habits. You can watch all of the TikTok videos, all of the YouTube videos filled with all of the strategies. The strategies to get yourself to do the things you don't want to do, the strategies to stop procrastinating. But if you don't use them, if you don't turn them into habits, they simply aren't helpful to anyone. To start making strategies for resistance helpful, create a list of them. Keep that list in sight, out of mind. Make it a part of your morning routine to actually go through that list and remind yourself of those strategies that you want to be going back to. Start using the strategies on your list and then making it an even more helpful list by clarifying it, getting rid of strategies that aren't that helpful, emphasizing strategies that are more helpful, making notes of when certain strategies are more helpful than others. If you're like, yes, that is a list that I want to create, but I forget what strategies to put on it, I have a few videos that'll give you a bunch of different strategies that you can add to that list. I'm gonna have a whole playlist filled with videos containing all the strategies that you can put on that list. It'll be linked down below. A list of emotional regulation techniques. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you can learn to regulate your emotions and get good at regulating your emotions, not only are you going to be more successful and more productive, which is all wonderful, but you're also going to be a way happier person and you are going to be way more fulfilled. All that emotional regulation is developing the ability to react to our emotions in a way that's actually helpful for us. And your emotional responses are habits that are embedded deeply into you. Just like any other habit, your emotional regulation habits have been building since you were in childhood. So they are strong. I don't know what that means, but we're gonna throw it out there. Every time in your life that you have practiced a certain way of responding to your emotions, so if you've responded to sadness with binging Netflix, you have reinforced that habit. And your brain, of course, is trying to help you with this habit. All it wants is relief. And that relief to it might come in the form of 3 hours of TikTok scrolling. But just like any other bad habit, you can change your response. The idea is that you want to get the same relief from a better habit. To start replacing unhealthy emotional regulation tools with healthier ones, create a list of how you do want to respond to your emotions. Then start actually using those techniques and figure out what works best for you. Because we all know that person that when they are sad, angry, they go on a run, and that really works for them. That gives them the emotional relief that they need. But for you, you might be like, absolutely not. That's not for me. Once again, make this list useful by actually using it. To get yourself into the practice of accessing it, integrate it into your morning routine. Make it accessible with a shortcut on your phone. Create a list of questions that you want to integrate into your life. If you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know that I believe that high quality questions lead to a higher quality life. If you start asking yourself better questions when you are making decisions, when you are facing challenges, when you are living your life, you are naturally and easily going to level up your life. An example of a low quality question is, why am I so lazy? But if you replace that with a high quality question, like, how can I better manage my energy and my focus throughout my days? You'll move to a place of compassion and productivity. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Ask, why might a good person have acted this way? To move from a person who judges and shames themselves to a person who has compassion and is focused on growth. To start asking higher quality questions, create a list of traits that you want to embrace and then match them with questions. Questions that you can ask routinely to help you to embed those traits. So if you want to embrace courage, the author of The Courage Habit suggests the question, if my most courageous self was making the decision here, what would I choose? If you want to embed self-love, Teal Swan talks about asking the question, what would someone who loves themselves do? Aristotle said, we learn an art or craft by doing the things that we shall have to do when we have learnt it. For instance, men become builders by building houses, harpers by playing the harp, Similarly, we become just by doing just acts, temperate by doing temperate acts, and brave by doing brave acts. By asking yourself the right questions, you lead yourself to the right actions. Those actions lead to who you become. Builders become builders by building. Courageous people become courageous by being courageous. Embed the traits that you want to embrace in your life by creating a list of questions that lead you to take on those traits. Create a list of topics to journal on. I used to really struggle with journaling. Like, I didn't really understand the point of it. I didn't really find it helpful. It didn't feel like it did anything for me. It didn't work for me. I'd hear about people really talking up journaling and being like, journaling changed my life. It changed my whole perspective. It healed me. And I was like, how? Like, I don't understand. When I journal, it feels like I'm banging my head against a wall. Until I changed my approach. My rule for journaling now is I journal with intent. And that intent might be to feel, to problem solve, to heal, to understand, to clarify. When I journal without intention for the sake of journaling, I tend to ruminate and feel worse. When I journal with intention, I journal in a way that has a lasting impact. To start journaling with more intention, create a journaling list. This isn't a list of arbitrary questions or topics to journal on, because I know that I don't find those very helpful unless they're specifically related to my challenge or problem. Instead, here is what to put on your list. Firstly, via the Journal Speak method by Nicole Sachs that I've been talking about recently, create a list of past stresses and current stresses that you haven't processed. These can range from the time that that friend said that thing to you that just made you feel like trash 5 years ago to your high school bullying experience. Then create a list of personality traits that you identify with that you think are giving you stress. Being neurotic, being type A, being inconsistent, being unreliable, being temperamental. The whole point of Journal Speak, this style of journaling, is to write down the raw, unfiltered truth. I've heard some people call it rage on a page. Sometimes it might just be sadness on a page. These topics very much fall into the intent of to feel and to heal. The next journaling topics to put on your list are problems to work through, things to make a decision on, and beliefs to reframe. Journaling on these is usually going to look very different from journaling to feel or to heal. My app Intention has a bunch of guided journaling exercises that are more so focused on the problem solving and making decisions side of things, like the guided journaling audio that walks you through making a hard decision, or the question storming journaling exercise that gets you to look at your problem from all different angles and make sure you're working on the right problem. There's the reframing your mindset exercise where you look at your beliefs. On my channel, I talk a lot about concepts and ideas, and on Intention is where I make those concepts and ideas actionable. It's filled with simple, actionable self-growth, self-care exercises that you can use in your routines. It has meditations like the Visualize Your Day meditation, the procrastination meditation. You can use the link in the description to sign up to Intention on whatever platform you use. Create a list of life areas. I have tried organizing reference information in all of the ways. And when I'm talking reference information, I'm talking letters I need to keep, manuals, checklists, ideas, phone numbers. The best way that I have found to organize this stuff is by life area, and this is very David Allen GTD-esque. So everything about my home, including cleaning checklists and product manuals, is under my home management page. My relationship meeting notes sit under my relationships page. My eye test results sit under my health page in Notion. To store your information better, to make your life so much easier, create a list of the life areas and even life interests that you have. Turn them into pages in an app like Notion or Evernote or whatever it is that you use, and start storing your reference information under those life areas. Create a list of moments, of media, and of learnings. There is something really nice at ending your year and being like, yeah, I did that. I grew that way. That's what I learned. That's what I spent my time on. But more often than not, we get to the end of the year and we're asking ourselves, like, what did I do? What did I spend my time doing? I know I've changed, but how? I know I've made progress, but how? Something that I did at the end of the last year to solve that problem was create this end of year wrapped, kind of like a Spotify wrapped, but for my favorite moments, my favorite media, my biggest learnings, as well as a heap of other things. I did it retroactively at the end of the year, and after I had done it, I was like, there's probably so much more that I could have put in this, but I've forgotten it all. This year, I've started to create a big list of my biggest moments, the media that I'm into, and the things that I'm learning, and I update that list every week in my little weekly reset, and it's really quick, really easy. This is more of a feel-good list. Even now when I do my weekly resets and I see my list that I've already created from the last 3 months, I'm like, oh, I remember that. And it's this nice, like, nostalgic feeling. You just feel proud, you feel reflective, and you're like, yeah, I'm doing things. Create a list of mentors for journaling. Derek Sivers wrote about his mentors, saying something along the lines of, when I am stuck on a problem and I need their help, I take the time to write a good description of my problem. Before I send a message to them, I try to predict what they'll say. I update what I wrote to address those obvious points in advance. Again, I predict what they'll say to this. advice based on what I know of them. After this whole process, I realize I don't need to bother them because the answer is now clear. Something that can be absolutely magical is outsider's perspective. For example, you know that your friend needs to just quit their job. That job isn't for them. They thrive so much better in that space over there. But they don't have the blessing of that outsider's perspective. You know for a fact that your friend needs to break up with that man. He's not for her. She deserves someone so much better. But they don't have the blessing of that outsider's perspective. Consulting a mentor gets you to tap into outsider's perspective in a new way. To start doing this, write a list of mentors that you want to consult. You want this to be a list of people that you are familiar with and you admire, people that you consume the content of ideally, where you know their beliefs, you know their ideas, you know their values. And for each of those mentors, you want to write a list of their values, of their beliefs, of their ideas. You can use this information as you journal and consult with them. Create your list of 12 questions. This is an exercise that I learned about through Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain course. He took it from Richard Feynman, who is a theoretical physicist. I first mentioned it in my video on 7 ways to change your life in a year, which I'm gonna have linked down below, but it's definitely worth mentioning again. So Richard said, you have to keep a dozen of your favorite problems constantly present in your mind, although by and large they will lay in a dormant state. Every time you read or hear of a new trick, a new result, test it against each of your 12 problems to see whether it helps. Every once in a while, there's going to be a hit. These can be personal problems, they can be work problems, they can be big life problems. Like, how can I find a way of exercising that I enjoy? Or how can I find a way to manage my energy and my focus? How can I deliberately practice public speaking? Or what are the best factors that I can measure for success with my students? When you watch videos like mine, or you read new books, you read new articles on any different topic area, and you get new insights, go back to your list of 12 questions. See if that advice can apply. This makes content consumption so much more intentional. I think sometimes we watch things and we feel so good for consuming all this information, and in 6 months' time, we've forgotten it all and we haven't used any of it. This is a way to make sure that you're fighting against that trap. If you liked this video, if you like the idea of creating lists that you actually use, go back to, that genuinely help you, I have a whole bunch of videos filled with lists that you can create to change your life. I'm going to have that playlist on the screen, but with all of my videos talking about the different lists that you can create. Clearly, I love a list. I appreciate you so very much, and I will see you soon.